evidence of this. They're not culpable. When people say, why is the government hiding all this? Well, the government is very complex and it's highly compartmentalized. These operations have been run by a clandestine, unsanctioned group. And therefore, our military and our intelligence community and our political leaders are, in fact, victims of this secrecy. I want to refer very briefly to one of the very first CI director, Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, who in 1961 wrote to the New York Times and said, the secrecy around UFOs is a threat to the national security, not the UFOs. So what has happened is it's all been turned on its head, where they're trying to say, UAPs are a threat. Well, the man-made ones are. The extraterrestrial ones aren't. This has to be made crystal clear to the American people so we don't stumble into an absolute disaster of epic proportions. So these operations that I've been referring to in the United States, we have parallel projects in Australia at Pine Gap. There are projects in the United Kingdom. These are all very sub rosa, off the radar. I have done briefings for the Minister of Defenses of Australia, Canada, and the Great Britain. None of them were read into these projects, and yet we had evidence they were ongoing. So they also act without acknowledging any national boundaries. What do I mean by that? So we have an operational facilities in other countries that we move in and out of with alacrity, without any knowledge or approval of that government. So this is also not good, obviously, and dangerous. But because of the nature of our operations, which can be cloaked, that have these AT or ARV vehicles, they can move off radar, they can go in and out of areas, and we have witnesses who can prove what I just said. Blackmail, bribery, and intimidation is the stock in trade, and is the operational core of this illegal secret government program. Many of our whistleblowers have been threatened and have been blackmailed, and in the case of some of us, attempts at bribery, including myself. Next. So these are the actions we recommend immediately, now that this is all coming out by the Congress and the government. Next. And I want to remind everyone who's in office, and all military know this, I do solemnly swear to affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. Next. So this is quite a list. I want to go through it very quickly. These have been conveyed over to the government in various offices. This investigation of the UAP issue, and based on the intelligence archive, should happen immediately and be increased in its pace and scope. The presidential executive order needs to occur immediately to stand down all targeting of these extraterrestrial vehicles by these covert projects, because it is dangerous and it is an existential threat to security for the entire world, not just our country. The executive order requiring all military intelligence contractors and other agencies of the U.S. government to disclose to Congress and White House all information, materiel, and technologies and locations and related assets. If not complied with, within around 6 months, we think that the offending party should be prosecuted criminally for treason and other crimes against the United States. The executive order we need an executive order where the State Department and Pentagon coordinate a global diplomatic as opposed to military response to these extraterrestrial civilizations. Should have happened. Barry Goldwater, Senator Goldwater told me it was a, excuse my language, goddamn mistake then and goddamn mistake now that this was ever kept secret like this. He was not allowed in this project. When he tried to get in, General Curtis LeMay told him he could never ask him about it again. We have that whole trail with former Senator Goldwater. So we also need to have an executive order so that the U.S. Patent Office that has seized these zero-point and related technologies under bogus application of the national security laws, and we have a copy of an inventor had one of these happen to him. Those have to be reversed, those patents have to be released, and inventors and scientists around the world that have come across these, look, the laws of the universe are universal, and they've been discovered by folks, they get grabbed, they are either put on a black shelf or they get this national security order slapped on them. Those have to be reversed, and those should be released open source to the public. We also need an executive order to immediately require that the U.S. Space Force and Pentagon coordinate assets with the State Department, the United Nations, and other governments to initiate further open communication with these civilizations. The Space Force could be very useful in this regard if it's deployed properly. All of the military would be very important. And I want to emphasize, both the people who work in most of these corporations and in these agencies and the Pentagon have no knowledge excuse me, of these illegal operations. And we should not paint them all with the brush of being culpable. It's not. These are the rogue elements. An executive order to immediately disclose advanced energy generating technologies should happen. These are held by some of these corporations and agencies. This would, within 10 to 20 years, end all pollution on Earth and all global poverty. This is not a pipe dream. Those technologies are extant. They have been around for a while, and we need them, and we need them 60 years ago, 70 years ago. Next. So, these are going to continue, and we don't have time to go through all of these. So the reason I'm going through these is that there's a specific action plan that we have. You can read these. They'll be in the press briefing materials if you need them. And I think it needs to happen very quickly because this is all going to come out, and there needs to be an organized response. Next. The congressional recommendations, Congress should immediately pass a $50 billion research bill to develop and bring forward the safe technologies related to zero-point and quantum vacuum energy systems. We provided 50-some billion for the chip industry. This is way more important. And frankly, it needs to come out very, very soon, given what we're facing with the climate and global poverty issues. That's something that needs to be put on the front burner. It is certainly a more important agenda than the partisan bickering that we see today. Amnesty provisions need to be passed explicitly for people wanting to come forward. I have a major number of folks who are executives, corporate, also whistleblowers, some of whom have been involved in activities that are not legal. If they come forward, they should have immunity so that this can all be unwound in an orderly and peaceful way. That needs to happen very quickly, and it should be included in a bill this year. The Congress should also convene open hearings on this. I understand from discussions with a member of the House Government Reform and Oversight Committee that this has been discussed by the chairman and the Speaker of the House. I think that should be put on the front burner and move forward very quickly. We will provide all information, and have already provided all information they will need. There are, I'm sure, other archives that can be brought to bear, and other whistleblowers are now going to be coming forward, probably several a week at this point. Congress should also pass legislation to explicitly protect the personal safety, like a witness protection program. It is not an exaggeration to say that in the 30-some years I've been dealing with this, I have dealt with multiple people who have been flat out threatened with execution. One of them is sitting here at this table, perhaps more. Next. So this, next slide. One of the things I just want to mention is the Lost Century was crowdfunded, and look at the subtitle, How to Reclaim It. Because there's a century of technological and scientific progress that would greatly benefit all of humanity, not just the United States. We all live on this beautiful sphere floating through space together. It needs to very much come forward. It's 100 years is long enough for secrecy. Next.